Good morning to all, and welcome to the third semester. So, in today's lecture, we are going to discuss an extract from the book written by Arvindo Ghosh. So, the extract starts with a reference to a book written with the same title, that is India Civilized, by Sir John Woodruff some years ago. So, Sir John Woodruff published a book, Is India, with the title Is India Civilized? This book was a criticism of an earlier book written by Mr. William Archer with the title Jude Spirit. So, Mr. William Archer published a book, Jude Spirit, and he criticized the Indian culture. He said that Indian culture is in a barbaric state, and the literature written by the Indian philosophers and writers is of inferior quality. So he was criticizing the non European philosophy and religions in that book. So Sir John Woodruff tried to defend the Indian culture, and this extract that we are going to study today is India Civilized. It is written by Arvindo Ghosh. It is also a defense of the Indian culture, Indian religion, and Indian practices as against the practices of non-Indian or non-Asian countries. Means Mr. William Archer was was an advocate of the Western point of views and Western culture and Western religions. He said that all the religions, all the practices, all the literature written in India and the Oriental world, Oriental means that is non-Western. Western, we call Occidents to the Western countries and Orients to the non-Western countries or non-European countries. So, Mr. William Archer said that all the literatures and cultures and religions of the Orients are of inferior quality and they live in a barbaric state. They are in a barbaric state and they are barbaric themselves. So, this is a defense of the Indian culture as against the allegations laid by Mr. William Archer. So, look at the page number 56 here. In the stupendous rush of change which is coming on human world as the result of the present tornado of upheaval, ancient India's culture attacked by European modernism, overpowered in the material field, betrayed by the indifference of her children, may perish forever along with the soul of the nation that holds it in its keeping. So there were changes that took place in the Indian culture. What were the reasons? Reasons were the attack by European modernism. So the culture of India was attacked by the modernism of the European modernism. Overpowered in the material field, the Indian culture was overpowered by the materialism of the Europeans, betrayed by the indifference of our children, and one of the major reasons was the betrayal of the Indians themselves. Indians themselves betrayed their culture. They tried to follow they have been trying to, and they have tried to follow in the footsteps of the European materialistic culture. So these are some of the reasons which are trying. These are some of the reasons which Aurobindo Ghosh says. These are the reasons which display the decadence of the Indian culture. Look at the next paragraph from here. True happiness lies in the finding and maintenance of a natural harmony of spirit, mind, and body. This is the major argument. You will find this argument throughout the two parts of this extract. So Aurobindo Ghosh says that human life is constituted with the three elements. There are three major elements, or human life is summed up in three major elements. That is the spirit, mind, and body. A culture is to be valued to the extent to which it has discovered a right key of harmony and organized its expensive motives and movements. So, the value of a culture lies in the harmony of these three elements. What are the three elements? Mind, body, and spirit. So, the harmony among these three elements is the key from where you can gauge the value of a culture. And a civilization must be judged by the manner in which all its principal ideas, forms, ways of living work to bring that harmony out. And how do we gauge the value of a civilization? How do we take out the value of a whole civilization? It must be judged by the manner, it must be judged by the ways in which these principles, ideas, forms, and way of living, in which these three elements they work together and bring about the harmony, way of living. The a civilization must be judged by its way of living, and that way of living which brings about the harmony among these three elements: spirit, mind, and body. So look at here. Realm of conscious morality is dharma here. Realm of conscious morality, dharma. The ultimate motive of human life should be dharma. So Aurobindo Ghosh was a yogi, and in this throughout this extract you will encounter the words that we used and that we use in spirituality, morality, religion. So this kind of words you are going to notice in this extract. This achievement, this victory over unconscious matter develops its lines, enlarges its scopes, elevates its levels until the increasing manifestation of the sattvic or spiritual portion of the vehicle of mind enables individual mental being in a man to identify himself the pure spiritual consciousness beyond mind. So the harmony among these three elements, mind, spirit, and body, it elevates a man into being, it elevates the mental level of a person being to identify himself with the pure spiritual consciousness beyond mind. So the materialism of the European culture has taken the man away from the consciousness from the consciousness. So the harmony between these three elements, that is mind, body, and spirit, that should be the ultimate motive of human life. India's social system is built upon this conception, and the social system or the societal system of Indian culture is built upon this proportion, that there should be a harmony among these three elements. Progress, look at the last line. Progress, she admits, but this spiritual progress. Progress, she, who is she? She refers to India. Means India admits progress. If we are following blindly the harmony between mind, spirit, and body, it does not mean, it never means that India does not admit the progress. I'm not sure if this is recording. So India admits progress, but spiritual progress. It is not the externally self-unfolding process of an always more and more prosperous and efficient material civilization. India accepts progress, but it is not the material progress. It should be the spiritual progress. spiritual progress. It is her founding of life upon this exalted conception and her urge towards the spiritual and eternal that constitute the distinct value of our civilization. The distinct value of Indian civilization lies in her founding of life upon this exalted conception and her urge towards the spiritual and external. It is her urge, it is her motive towards being spiritual. That is the distinct value, that is the value of Indian culture. The value of Indian culture lies in its spirituality, not in the materialism but in the spirituality. So in the next paragraph, Arvindo Ghosh is trying to say that there is and there has always been clash between different cultures. In this paragraph, in this whole paragraph, Arvindo Ghosh is trying to say that there is a law of struggle between different cultures. When two cultures meet, when two cultures interact, there ensues a kind of struggle between them. When two cultures interact with each other, there is some give and take between these two cultures. There is a struggle of being superior to other cultures. Different cultures, the powerful culture tries to dominate over the weaker culture. So the conflict is not indeed the last and ideal stage. So when two cultures interact with each other, they are bound to come into conflict with each other. But that conflict should not be the ultimate motive. There is it is unavoidable. It cannot be avoided that there cannot be a conflict. If there is no conflict, there will not be any progress. So Arvindo Ghosh says that when two cultures meet, there is a conflict, and there should be a conflict, but the conflict should not be the ultimate motive. The ultimate motive should be the progress, and progress lies in that conflict. The culture which gives up is here. The culture which gives up its living separateness, the civilization which neglects an active self defense will be swallowed up, and the nation which lived by it will lose its soul and perish. So, the culture which gives up the struggle, which gives up its living separateness, the culture which gives up in front of the forces of a dominant culture, that culture will be swallowed up, that culture will perish, will be perished by the dominant forces of the other culture. India is the Bharata Shakti. India is the Bharata Shakti, the living energy of a great spiritual conception, and fidelity to is the very principle of our existence. Means the only energy, the only force that keeps the Indian spirituality alive is fidelity, is loyalty to the very principle of our existence. And what is that principle? That principle is the harmony among three elements, that is mind, body, and soul. Materially and spiritually, Europe has thrown herself repeatedly upon Asia, Asia too upon Europe to conquer, assimilate, and dominate. It is here. Materially and spiritually, Europe has thrown herself repeatedly upon Asia, Asia too upon Europe to conquer, assimilate, and dominate. As I have already told you, Arvindo Ghosh said that when two cultures interact, there is bound to be a conflict. And this conflict is to conquer, assimilate, and dominate. The European culture has tried to enthrust itself, has tried to throw herself upon Asia, and Asian culture has tried to throw herself upon the European culture, and this is a struggle for superiority, a struggle to become superior. Since it is, it is since from here. Since some centuries, Europe has become material, predatory, aggressive, and has lost the harmony of the inner and outer man, which is the true meaning of civilization and the efficient condition of a true progress. So, Arvindo Ghosh is trying to defend the Indian culture and criticize the European materialism, means they are too much given to the materialistic attitude. Since some centuries, Europe has become material, means they are they are striving towards the material prosperity, not the spiritual but material prosperity. And they have lost the harmony of inner and outer, means they have lost the harmony among the three elements, mind, body, and spirit. And the modern European civilization, which has invaded Asia and which all violent attacks on Indian ideals represent, is the effective form of this material culture. And when they are trying to attack the other cultures, it is the outcome of that excessive materialism that is leading them towards attacking other cultures aggressively. India, true to her spiritual motive, has never shared in the physical attacks of Asia upon Europe. Means India has never attacked any other country to overpower or the conquer the culture of other countries or conquer the European culture. But she has now been physically occupied by Europe, and this physical conquest must necessarily be associated with an attempt at cultural conquest. Means the European countries have politically conquered India, and this must be accepted that if a country is conquered politically, it will also be conquered culturally. Its culture will also be taken over, its culture will also be overpowered by the country which has a dominant culture, which is trying to attack the culture which seems diminishing in front of him, which seems inferior, which lacks the support from its own people. It is for her now from here. It is for her now to recover herself, defend her cultural existence against an alien penetration, preserve her distinct spirit, essential principle and characteristic forms of her own salvation and the total welfare of the human race. It is it is it is the responsibility of the Indians. It is the responsibility of the India to recover herself. It is not the responsibility of a foreign culture to recover the lost value of a culture. The value has the value that has been lost is because of a foreign attack, foreign cultural attack. So the responsibility of the recovery lies on India itself, on Indian themselves. So they have to defend their cultural existence against the alien penetration. So they have to defend themselves against the alien attack. Law of graduality. Law of graduality of the spiritual advance of humanity. The need of advancing through three successive stages. The graduality and spiritual advance of humanity, it advances through three stages. The first stage is the period of conflict and competition. So as we have already talked, when two cultures interact, there is bound to be a conflict. What is the second stage? The second step brings a stage of concert, means there is a reconciliation between things. Uh, there is a balance of things. First one is struggle. When two cultures meet, there is bound to be a struggle. And second stage is the stage of concert, the stage of balance between two things. The third and last is marked by the spirit of sacrifice. Means the third is the spirit of sacrifice because all is known as the oneself, each gives himself for the good of others. Means the third stage is the spiritual stage, means doing good of others. These are the three stages. Individuals have reached the highest stage, the perfect sannyasi, the liberated man, the soul that has become one with spirit, knows all being as himself, and for him all self defense and attacks are needless. Means the third, the ultimate motive is the first stage was conflict, second stage was a balance, and third stage was sacrifice. Sacrifice means sacrifice for the development of a new culture, for the foundations of a new culture. To allow oneself to be killed like the lamb attacked by wolf brings no growth. This is what Arvindo Ghosh is trying to say. If we allow ourselves to be attacked, if we allow ourselves to be killed by foreign cultures, it brings no growth. We have to defend ourselves. There has to be a stage of conflict. If some foreign culture attacks, if some foreign culture tries to overpower the culture of India, then Indian people must defend their culture. There should always be a stage of conflict. That is the first step towards the progress. That is the first step towards the progress. Spiritual and temporal have indeed to be perfectly harmonized, for the spirit works through mind and body. That is it is again the I earlier told you that you will encounter such words, such terminology throughout this extract: spirit, mind, and body. So again, Arvindo Ghosh is trying to recall trying to recall what he earlier said, that what is the perfection is the harmony among these three elements. But the purely intellectual or heavily material culture of the kind that Europe now favors bears in its heart the seed of death. That is the ultimate attack on European materialism. So you have to remember 2 points: European materialism and Indian spirituality. That is the key difference between these two cultures. Europe is given too much to the materialistic attitude, and India is occupied with the spirituality. So, Arvindo Ghosh is trying to say that the way that the European cultures have chosen will lead them to their death. India, through its urge, is towards the eternal, since it is always the highest, the eternally, entirely real, still contains in her own culture and her own philosophy a supreme reconciliation of the eternal and temporal, and she need not seek it from outside. Means the culture of India knows how to establish a balance between these things. So there is a Arvindo Ghosh puts forth a question: where does India actually stand on her eternal foundation? What is the value of the Indian culture in the face of this struggle with the European cultures? So, where does Indian culture stand? As she has been largely affected by European culture, that we have to accept because of the political conquest and because of the cultural conquest. Indian culture has suffered a great loss. European, it has been largely affected by the European culture. Asia is re-arising. You have to study it from here. Asia is re-arising. Asia is re-arising, but that very fact will intensify and is already intensifying the attempt, natural and legitimate according to the law of competition of European civilization to assimilate Asia. Means there is a struggle among the various cultures, and the culture that puts forth itself energetically will emerge victorious, and the culture which admits defeat will perish. It is a cultural quarrel complicated with a political question. It is a cultural quarrel complicated with a political question. India must become culturally a province of Europe and form politically one part of Europeanized, if not European concert. Europeans are trying to demolish the Indian culture and establish a European culture all over the Asian countries and India. So, otherwise, Europe may become culturally a province of Asia. I earlier told you there is give and take between different cultures. If two cultures interact with each other, there will give and take. There will be a kind of give and take. There will be a kind of barter system between these two cultures. Some of the practices of one culture will be adopted by the other, and the some of the practices of one culture will be adopted by the other culture. So there is a kind of give and take between the cultures. So what did Mr. William Archer say in his attack? His attack was frankly a political motive. His attack had a political motive, means to make people feel diminished, to make Indian people feel inferior. So his attack had a political motive. If he said that if she adheres to her own civilization, Mr. William Archer said that if India adheres to her own civilization, to her own ways of being, to her own way of spirituality, she has a hideous blot upon this fair, luminous, rationalistic world. Means if India continues to follow this her spirituality, it is a kind of blot on this rationalistic world. Mr. William Archer said that this world runs with mind, not spirituality. So, if India continues to govern itself with spirituality, it is a kind of blot in the face of the civilization. Either she must Europeanize, rationalize, materialize her whole being and deserve liberty by change, or else she must be kept in subjection and administered by her cultural superiors. So, this is the gist of the essay that William Archer said that either the Indian culture should Europeanize or materialize itself, or it should be taken over by the European culture to civilize the Indian culture. So, they they have taken a kind of responsibility on their they have taken a kind of burden on their shoulders to civilize the uncivilized. Means there is a kind of civilizing mission. You remember this phrase, civilizing mission? Means what is civilizing mission? Civilizing mission is the mission of Europeans to civilize the uncivilized Indians, uncivilized Orient people, uncivilized Orient countries. So they considered it their responsibility to civilize those people who are living in a barbaric state. Who are living in a barbaric state. It must be kept in mind that it was through their perception. It was only by their perception that other people are living in a barbaric state. Other people are living in a barbaric state. There is a term utilitarian materialism. What is utilitarian materialism? Utilitarian materialism is the principle. What is utilitarian? Means making best out of things, making best out of things. And what is materialism? Means when you are too much given to the materialistic attitude, when you are given too much to the worldly things. So in this page, Arvindo Ghosh is trying to defend the Indian culture, and he's trying to say that the author has a little underrated the force of Indian revival. Means Indian culture is reviving itself, and it is capable of mouthing the potentiously obsequious imagination that European institutions are the standard by which aspirations of India are set, that except for the rapidly dwindling class to which the spokesman belong, has its truth now only in a single field, the political. Means the attack of William Archer was surely political, and they are trying to defend Indians are trying to revive their culture, but even there, a deep change of spirit is foreshadowed, although it has not yet taken definite form and has now to meet a fresh invasion of Europeanism inspired by the militant crudeness of a proletarian Russia. Means the proletarian Russia. What is proletarian? Means what is proletariat? Proletariat is the working class. The revolution in Russia has also its impact on the Indian culture, and the revolution is making an impact in the favor of materialism. So the European culture is already materialistic, and Russian revolution is too much given to materialistic motive. So India is also being affected by the Russian revolution. Again, he does not attach a sufficient importance to the increasing infiltration of India's spiritual thought into the Europe and America. It must also be admitted that the influence of India is also increasing in the European countries. Some of the European scholars are also influenced by the Indian literature, means Vedas, Mahabharatas, and Ramayanas. They're like Skofener and Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson. These are some of the scholars who are too much affected by the Indian literature, by the Indian Vedas, by the Indian philosophical writings. Why are a certain class of Indians still hypnotized in all fields by European culture, and why are we still hypnotized by it in the field of politics? Means we are hypnotized by the European culture. There is a power that pulls Indian people. There is a power that pulls Indians towards the European culture, because they constantly saw all the power creation activity on both sides of Europe, all the immobility or weakness of a static inefficient defense on side of India. Means all the immobility or weakness of a static inefficient, means it is a political discourse. डिस्कोर्स इज बीइंग क्रिएटेड, एक तरह का डायलॉग बनाया जा रहा है. A discourse is being created, a dialogue is being created that Indian culture is inferior and Indian people need to be civilized, and the responsibility of civilization lies on the superior Europeans. In the Swadeshi movement, for it was a movement which attempted to override the previous apparent. Hmm. In the Swadeshi movement, it was for a movement which attempted to override the previous apparent impossibility of political creation by the Indian spirit upon other than imitative European lines. If it failed, the Swadeshi movement, what was the Swadeshi movement? The adoption of things made in India itself. The movement, it was a struggle to recapture what is lost. It was a struggle to recapture what is lost. So the Swadeshi movement was a political struggle to make Indian people aware, assert the importance of the Indian culture, assert the importance of Indian culture for a political Europeanism, For a political Europeanization would be followed by a social turn of the same kind and bring a cultural and spiritual death in its train. So the thing is the things or the ideas are repeating themselves means a political conquest will be followed by a cultural conquest. A country that has been politically conquered will be conquered culturally too. And if India is conquered politically by the European powers, it will bring with itself the death of Indian culture. It will prove a doom for Indian culture. For Indian culture. The principle of struggle, conflict, and competition. The principle of struggle, conflict, and competition still governs, and for some time will still govern international relation. So the international relations are governed by the political struggle and the struggle to prove one to prove oneself superior. And this conflict takes various forms uh, in the face of various struggles. It can be political struggle, it can be cultural struggle, struggle to assert one's culture, struggle to establish political control over other countries. The war has brought it into violent relief. But after the war is bringing out all the implications as well as the mass of its difficulties, this is yet no real concert, still less the beginning of a true unity, but only a compelling physical oneness forced on us by scientific inventions and modern circumstances. So, Arvindo Ghosh has made a comment on war. When a country is occupied, when 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 a nation is overpowered through a war, you can take the example of taking over of you can take the example of the World War First or some other wars that took place. So what is the outcome of war? Outcome of war is the forceful oneness. What is forceful oneness means? You are trying to unite those people who are not ready to unite with your culture. फोर्सफुली आप किसी को कंपेल कर रहे हैं दैट यू बिकम वन विद अस, यू फॉलो आवर कल्चर बिकॉज इट इज सुपीरियर. दैट इज द forceful oneness, that is the force that is trying to unite, and that is the outcome of war. अगर लड़ाई हो रही है वेपन्स को लेकर अगर लड़ाई हो रही है तो दैट इज अ फोर्सफुल ट्रांजिशन, दैट इज अ force that is trying to dominate the other culture. But the cultural conquest does not take place like that. It should be gradual, it should be the law of graduality. The law of graduality works here, it is not the law of forcement. But the ideal of entire separateness of the people is not likely to prevail. दो चीज़ें हो सकती है, that either you struggle politically, एक तो कि आप डिफेंड करें और एक आप जो है वो हार मान ले. दो चीज़ें हो सकती है. डिफेंड करके आप अपने आप को अलग नहीं रख सकते. यू कैन नॉट लिव इन अ काइंड ऑफ एंटायर सेपरेटनेस ऑफ द पीपल. एंटायर सेपरेटनेस जो है वो पॉसिबल नहीं है बिकॉज यू आर लाइकली टू बी इन्फ्लुएंस्ड बाय अदर कल्चर्स. सेपरेट आप रह नहीं सकते. सेपरेट नहीं रहेंगे तो सुपीरियर कल्चर जो है वो उसका इन्फ्लुएंस होगा. तो ये जो है वो एक कल्चरल स्ट्रगल जो है वो चलती रहनी चाहिए हमेशा, एंड दैट इज़ द लॉ ऑफ प्रोग्रेस. दैट इज़ द लॉ ऑफ प्रोग्रेस. ये नहीं कि डिफीट जो है एक्सेप्ट कर लें. डिफीट एक्सेप्ट हो जाएगी तो हार हार हो जाएगी। हार होने का मतलब जो है वो कि हमारा कल्चर जो है वो खत्म हो जाएगा। अगर हम ज़्यादा अग्रेसिवली अगर हमारे कल्चर को डिफेंड करने की कोशिश करें, पॉलिटिकली किसी नेशन के ऊपर हम अटैक करें और उसके ऊपर अपना एम्पायर एस्टेब्लिश कर लें, तो वो जो हो गया वो फोर्सफुल वननेस हो गया। ऐसे कल्चर जो है वो काम नहीं करता। Cultural progress works only when there is a struggle and law of graduality works there, कि धीरे धीरे कल्चरल चेंज आते हैं एंड दैट बिकम्स द फीचर्स, द स्टेपल फीचर्स ऑफ ए कल्चर, जो धीरे धीरे आएंगे ग्रेजुअली, जो अपने आप चेंज आएगा, दैट इज द ओरिजिनल कल्चर चेंज। इट कैनॉट, यू कैनॉट लिव इन आइसोलेशन, अलग नहीं रह सकते। यू कैनॉट फोर्स योर यू कैन नॉट फोर्स योर कल्चर ऑन अदर कल्चर्स, अपने यू कैन नॉट फोर्स योर कल्चरल आइडियल्स ऑन अदर कल्चर्स, अपने कल्चरल आइडियल्स को आप किसी और के ऊपर फोर्स नहीं कर सकते। ना ही तो अलग रह सकते, ना ही फोर्स कर सकते। तो जो लॉ ऑफ ग्रेजुअलिटी जो है वो काम करना चाहिए, और उसी की वजह से कल्चर में जो है वो चेंज आता है। आगे पेज 65 के ऊपर जो है वो जिस्ट है बुक का, जो यहाँ दिया गया है आपके पेज 64 से शुरू होता है नीचे, पेज 64 से शुरू होता है नीचे। स्पिरिचुअलिटी इज नॉट द मोनोपोली ऑफ इंडिया, स्पिरिचुअलिटी इज द नॉट द मोनोपोली ऑफ इंडिया, कि स्पिरिचुअलिटी पे सिर्फ इंडिया का हक नहीं है। However, it may hide submerged in intellectualism or hid in other concealing veils. It is a necessary part of human nature. Means spirituality जो है वो सिर्फ इंडिया से रिलेटेड नहीं है, it is the necessary part of human nature. Human nature का एक पार्ट है spirituality, इंडिया का पार्ट नहीं है। Spirituality is a part of human nature. जो यूरोपियन कल्चर्स जो थे वो आज मटीरियलिज्म की तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं। एक टाइम ऐसा था कि वहाँ भी स्पिरिचुअलिटी थी। ये बात अरविंदो घोष ने इस एक्सट्रैक्ट में कही है कि जो स्पिरिचुअलिटी जो है ये सिर्फ इंडिया का पार्ट नहीं है, ये वेस्टर्न कल्चर्स जो थे वहाँ भी स्पिरिचुअलिटी काम करती रही है। वहाँ वहाँ स्पिरिचुअलिटी से जो है वो मूव अवे कर करके मटीरियलिज्म जो है वो मटीरियलिज्म ने अपना प्लेस बनाया है। हाउ एवर इट मे हाइड समर्ज्ड इन इंटेलेक्चुअलिज्म, बट द डिफरेंस इज बिटवीन स्पिरिचुअलिटी मेड द लीडिंग मोटिव एंड डिटरमाइनिंग पावर ऑफ बोथ द इनर एंड द आउटर लाइफ, एंड spirituality spirituality suppressed स्पिरिचुअलिटी सप्रेस्ड। सो डिफरेंस कहाँ आता है? स्पिरिचुअलिटी जो है वो इंडिया की मोनोपोली नहीं है, यूरोप में भी थी स्पिरिचुअलिटी। तो डिफरेंस क्या है दोनों कल्चर्स में? डिफरेंस है कि स्पिरिचुअलिटी को हम हैंडल कैसे कर रहे हैं। क्या हम उसको लीडिंग मोटिव और डिटरमाइनिंग पावर बना रहे हैं इनर एंड आउटर लाइफ का? अगर स्पिरिचुअलिटी को हम एक अगर मोटिव बना रहे हैं, इफ वी आर ट्राइंग टू यूनाइट द स्पिरिचुअलिटी विद अवर इनर एंड आउटर लाइफ, एंड spirituality suppressed, spirituality suppressed, प्लीज होल्ड ऑन 1 सेकेंड। भाई साहब 5 मिनट में करता हूँ। हेलो। So the key difference is the is in the handling of spirituality. How do we handle it? कैसे हैंडल करते हैं हम इस चीज को? क्या हम इसको लीडिंग मोटिव और डिटरमाइनिंग पावर बनाते हैं, या हम इसको जो है वो सप्रेस करते हैं? दैट इज द की डिफरेंस बिटवीन द इंडियन कल्चर एंड यूरोपियन कल्चर। यूरोपियन कल्चर इज ट्राइंग टू सप्रेस द स्पिरिचुअलिटी, एंड इंडियन कल्चर इज ट्राइंग टू express its spirituality. That is the key difference, and that is the gist of this book. So at the end of this page, look at the quotation. Either India will be rationalized and industrialized out of all recognition, and she will be no longer India, or else she will be the leader in a new world phase. अगर spirituality के साथ अगर इंडिया चलता है तो वो जो है वो एक नया लीडर बन जाएगा, एक नया फेज शुरू होगा इस वर्ल्ड का जिसमें इंडिया लीडर बनेगा. And if India loses its spirituality, India will be rationalized and industrialized. India will be rationalized, India will be given to the materialistic attitude. तो फिर इंडिया का कल्चर जो है वो खत्म हो जाएगा. Uh, there is one last quotation on page 66 of the first part. India must defend herself by reshaping her cultural forms to express more powerfully, intimately, and perfectly her ancient ideal. That is the gist of the first part. Means if India is to defend her cultural ideals, she must defend herself by reshaping her cultural forms. Her cultural forms must be reshaped. Only the reshaped culture will be able to defend India in the face of दिस मटीरियलिज्म. अगर मटीरियलिज्म से बचना है तो इंडिया को अपने कल्चरल फॉर्म्स जो है वो उनको रीशेप करना पड़ेगा ताकि वो जो है वो उनको एडिक्वेटली डिफेंड किया जा सके. जो सेकंड पार्ट जो है इसको हम नेक्स्ट लेक्चर में डिस्कस करेंगे. आज एक बार आप फर्स्ट जो पार्ट है इसको एक बार आप दोबारा पढ़ें. यू स्टडी दिस पार्ट अगेन, and in the next lecture we will discuss the second part of Is India Civilized? Thank you.